Okay.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. How we doing?
Hey,
Good morning.
good.
Good morning.
We were trying to decide who was going to be the teacher today.
Oh, well, it's not quite that time yet, but
Not yet.
yeah. What? Well, yeah, it's 10 o'clock. Okay. So how's everybody doing this very chilly, wintry feeling morning today?
Yeah, not as cold as yesterday.
You don't think? I thought it was colder last night.
That's what I'm saying. It's not as cold as yesterday.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Well, it's supposed to get warmer as the week goes on. It's supposed to be in the 70s over the week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm,
And
mm.
yesterday
that
afternoon
sounds good
was
to
actually
me.
pretty nice. But yeah, the nights are getting chilly. Anyway, so guess what we're doing today?
Right.
Well, we are watching short little videos, okay? And I'm going to preface this class by saying that for the most part, we're going to be looking at old geezers, okay?
Old geezers.
Old geezers.
We see those all the time.
Yeah, I know, we live with it, right? It is our reality, right? For some of us, yeah. Yeah, you ladies can't be called old geezers, you know. But
Thank you.
John
Thank
and
you.
I,
Thank you very much.
But I can't.
but John and I and Bob, you know, we probably fall into that category pretty easily. So, but we're gonna actually talk to a couple. Well, not talk to them, but have listened to them. And these are very short videos. But I stumbled across a couple of really interesting artists. I think two of them, maybe three of them, are members of what people call the Royal Society of Art in England. One of them is a professor, at least one of them, probably, at least two of them are. And they've been painting for a very long time. And I've had a bit of an epiphany, okay, that I want to share with you about old geezers, who have been painting for a long time. If you listen to them, they kind of say things without actually saying it, okay? They abbreviate things into just very short things, but what they're saying to you is kind of important, but they don't go into a lot of explanation about it. And so you've got to listen very carefully with some of these, because there's some actual pearls of wisdom for all three of these guys that you'll hear. And then we're gonna listen to another video, but we're only gonna listen to watch a couple of short segments of it. And it's from an American painter, and we've looked at her work before. Her name is Susan Lyon. She's from the Midwest, and she primarily does portraits, but she's not what you would call a traditional portrait painter. Okay, so real interesting work, and she does a demo where she's doing a little head study, and then she's also doing a demo on a figure study, and they're real short. They're like less than 5 minutes, for each of those sections. So we're going to watch a lot of videos, but it's not going to take up a lot of time, and then we're going to look at some of two of these artists' work a little more in detail, and kind of talk about throwing paint onto a canvas and what that actually kind of means, in what and why people do that. So why would you choose to spend your life throwing paint on a canvas, I guess. And we can kind of talk about the reasons for that, both your own as well as what you think theirs are. Okay, so that's the plan. Anybody got anything we need to talk about before we move on? No?
Not I.
Okay. Also, just to let you know, and this isn't official, but I may be doing classes from the Benson Center for the next couple of days. It will still be on Zoom, but I'll be at the center. For some of you, like Veronica, you might have some work there. You know, other people might have work at the Benson Center. I'm going back there because end of last year, we had a lot of artwork on the wall. They took it all down, stored it away, and it seems to be in kind of a chaotic state, and they can't find things. So I need to go there and sort of gather it all up, organize it, and over the next week or so, I'm going to be trying to call people and get their work actually back to them, because it's been at the center for way too long. And so that's kind of my goal, is to get everything out of there. And that way we don't lose stuff. You know?
Yeah.
You know, we don't want it to walk off and disappear. So at any rate, that's kind of the plan for the next couple of days. So in the case that tomorrow you don't see, you know, this background behind me, then you know I'm at the Benson Center. Okay.
Okay.
But that won't change the schedule for classes or anything like that. We'll still be doing the same thing. I'll just probably be doing it from there. All right.
All right.
So let's just dive in. Okay.
Okay.
So the first person I want to introduce you to, if I can find him. Oh yeah. Okay. There he is. Is a guy by the name of Kenneth Howard. Okay. And you know, let's just check his stuff out. Is that him? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Variations on a theme. Okay. And I'm going to talk a little bit about him, you know, after we watch this. Let me back it up so you kind of get a start.
If you're interested in life, and that is the motivation for your painting, there's no point in working hour in and hour out on the same picture. You've really got a window of about an hour and a half in which to nail down your subject, your sensation, whatever you call it. And once that hour and a half is gone, the image then is different. It is then different again. And after you get to know the subject, then you can begin to work on a larger scale, on the times of day, if you like, that most excite. Whether it's dark against light, warm against cool, bright against dull, whatever, it's always playing one thing off against another. If I get a day when the light seems right, I'll come back and work on it. Right, we're now back in the studio, and I now have several studies of the subject that we started in the city. Working in the studio is in a way, much harder. You're involved in this picture for weeks, if not months, if not years. I will adjust still things in this case. That's the nature of the big studio painting.
Okay. Anybody pick up anything out of that short little video?
It was sort of hard to hear him.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
difficult to hear, yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I did hear him say is that it's easier working outside the studio instead of in the studio.
Mhm.
And you have a certain amount of time for light, like an hour and a half, to get the same light while you are doing your plein air painting, and then you can come back to the studio to make it larger.
Yeah. Okay.
He looked like he had a lot of studies too that he had
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, he had painted, he had gone back to that particular view or scene, multiple times, and had done several paintings, not just one, of that location, because he found something there that he wanted to try to capture, something about the light, something about the atmosphere there. And so he did a whole series of paintings, and that might involve 4 or 5 different paintings at a smaller size. And he did that for several reasons, and I'm going to just kind of add my own thing in here. But when I do something like that, or when other painters generally do that, it's because we want to get to know the nature of that thing or that place. There's something that sort of gives us a little bit of inspiration, catches our interest, and you go back and you revisit that, that place or that theme or that idea multiple times, and you kind of work through it.
Hey, it's Medicare open enrollment. We just compared.
Okay, something about Medicare. I don't know. Anyway, but the reason to keep doing that is because it's like every time you go back to it, you kind of absorb a little more of it. You get a little clearer understanding of it. And you're not really ready to do like a finished painting until you really go through that process. Okay? And that really makes a huge difference. I think that's kind of dividing line between, a professional artist and somebody who is doing it as a hobby or an amateur, because I think a lot of people who are sort of in that amateur category, they get inspired by that thing, they do it one time, and they're done with it. It's like, okay, and they're not going to dig any deeper. Where I think professional artists, maybe it's just experience or something, but they, at some point, I think they realize that to really begin to understand something deeply, it can't be just a quick one-time visit. You're not going to get it all, because there's more to it. There's more layers than just that. And so I think it's kind of important, to really look at people's working process and how they do things, and then begin to figure out why. Why do they do the things they do? And you can learn a lot from that. One of the things I keep pushing all of you to do is to, before you get too committed to doing any major thing that you're going to put like hours and hours of work into, spend a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever, and do some thumbnails, right? Work out some ideas, play with the composition, play with color, just, and try to get away from doing, just conventional color studies, play with it. I mean, literally play with it, rather than having this blue sky. What would happen if I made my sky green or pink or orange, and, play with those colors and values, just in a thumbnail, so that if it doesn't work out, well, okay, You know, you haven't committed more than maybe 5 or 10 minutes to that little thumbnail. See, but now you know. See, now you've got a little more knowledge to move forward into the next one and try to develop for yourself a working process so that when you get to doing that final piece, you know, you have a good firm idea of where you're going and, you know, what you're trying to really accomplish and how you're really going to take that subject, whatever that is, and make it your own. Okay? Because that's really what art is all about, is not just looking at something and copying it, but looking at something, beginning to try to get some understanding about it, you know, and maybe some understanding about why you want to paint it, you know, what interests you about that subject, and then playing with it, you know, playing with it, kind of absorbing it, making it your own, and then creating a piece of artwork that reflects how you see and how you feel about the thing that you're painting. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. You know, so I want, you know, as we go forward, you know, I want each of you to kind of think about that more and more about, you know, how is it that, you know, yeah, I could sit here and I can copy this thing faithfully, but rather than do that, how am I really going to make it my own? You know, what have I got to really say about it? And how do I want to treat it, you know, with color, with value, with the way I draw it, you know, with the way that I crop or design it, you know, because those all make statements about who you are, you know, as an individual and as an artist, as well as how you feel or see a particular subject, right? So, are we beginning to get off deep into the deep end of the pool now?
Yeah.
Okay. But as time goes on, I want you to think more and more about that. You know, I mean, make it fun, you know, for yourself. You know, and like I said, you know, the hardest thing right now for all of us is to learn how to play, you know, because we've all kind of had that kind of weeded out of us, you know, as we've gotten older. And it's that element, you know, of being able to look at something and play with it, you know, and kind of figure out how you feel about it and then get it out there on a piece of paper, or, you know, whether you're making a quilt or whatever art form you want to take about it, you know, making some kind of statement about what it is that you're seeing and how you feel about it. Okay? So let's see, let's close that. All right. So as I said, his name was Kenneth Howard, and he's a professor and a member of the Royal Academy of Art in London. And now I'm going to show you a little bit of his work. Okay. Yeah, right here. Okay. Now, I have to be honest with you, you know, I really did not, and still really wouldn't say that I know a lot about him, but in the little bit of research that I have done on him, I've learned quite a bit, you know, about how he works and, you know, how he paints. And I have to say, you know, I like where he's going. I really do.
Are these fairly current, or are these over his career?
I think a lot of this stuff, yeah, is probably within the last like 20 to 30 years. Okay. But you'll see a lot of paintings that, you know, are like this, that are very loose, right? Very quick, very gestural in nature. And he's got a mixture of landscape and figures. You know, in particular, I like his life studies. They have an energy to them and this sense of presence with his figures. And, well, you know, we'll look at them. But, you know, my sense is when I look at a large body of his work, and particularly when he's working with models, it's not about the human figure. It's about the human figure in light within a space, you know, particularly like, you know, a studio and the relationship of the model, you know, and, well, the relationship of the model and the artist, you know, to each other, and how an artist, what in particular, how he sees, you know, other people, you know, particularly models, both male and female. So, like in this case, you know, it looks like a very quick gestural painting. It probably was. Probably not very large, and you know, but look at the sense of movement and light in it, you know, which is really, really nice. You know, very limited in color. You know, it seems to be generally kind of subdued, and it's like the red is the dominant color in here. And so, like the red in the skin tones, which is fairly muted, the red with the sash or whatever around the robe or kimono she's wearing, and even the red on the floor, the carpet. There are just these little touches, you know, but everything else is so neutral in comparison that those reds kind of become very strong and dominant. And in fact, you can see more reds here in the background in these grays. There's a kind of a warm reddish feel to them. I think, you know, he plays with color a lot. You know, warm colors, cool colors. You know, another studio painting with a figure. And if you look at these, you know, and you look at a whole series of them, like this painting and this painting here, you know, they're from the same series. They're the same model, but it's, you know, it's changed. And again, that goes back to this whole idea of doing something multiple times, different variations, trying different things, you know, and not getting like obsessed and stuck, you know, on trying to do a finished piece of work, you know, but instead taking a subject, exploring it, playing with it, seeing what you can do with it. And as we look through his work, you know, you'll see that, you know, he does that kind of over and over again. Now, this is a larger, more finished work. But again, it's all about the light, you know, in the studio with the model. And again, look at the palette that he's using. You know, the colors are fairly subdued. And he just uses a few stronger, you know, warms and cools, you know, to really make the painting come alive. This is kind of beautiful.
I tell you, I'm always trying to get that light look rather than white and yellow. You know, that's the thing. That's the thing that what puzzles me the most, I guess. You know, that trying to get that feel of light, you know, rather than, let's say, just white and yellow.
Right. Well, and see, the thing is, if you begin to look at this painting very carefully, and really any of this painting, there's almost no straight white.
Yeah.
You know, now he gets very, very light values of color. And so basically everything here is kind of in that, you know, middle light to, you know, dark range in value. And he saves the light for where he wants to really draw your eye. So the back of the shirt, the tabletop, the window, right? And everything else is more subdued. Right? And if you look at this very carefully, as I said, you know, there's no straight white in here. You know, there's mixtures of yellows, grays, blues, greens, reds, but they're all subdued color. And they all are from that middle light, you know, or darker value range, except for, you know, really where it wants to draw your eye. So. But also notice there's not a lot of detail, right? You know, he's not carefully rendering much of anything here. You know, he's making, you know, pretty definitive statements of, okay, so there's a figure sitting here, and the direction of the light is really coming in from the front side of her. And so she's getting a little bit of light on her upper leg, on the stocking, and on the inside of her leg. And then everything else from there over is in shadow. You know, all of the torso is in shadow, up to the shoulders. And really just, you know, just the very edge is catching a little bit of light on the top of the hair. But everything else, again, is falling into a shadow. And so, you know, he's making very definite observations about where the light is and where it's not. And he's dividing the painting, you know, based on that. Excuse me. Again, this looks like one of the quicker, you know, sort of studies that he's doing. Now, this particular pose right here, I've seen this, and I believe this actual pose, I think Degas has a nude that's almost in this exact pose right here. You know, because I've seen that before, and I believe it's Degas. But you know, he had the model in the studio, and she, you know, more or less took that same pose, same angle. And again, you know, backlit, all the light's coming from outside, you know, in, and so she's more of a silhouette, a darker shape on top of, you know, a series of lighter shapes and values. And you know, in any of these, again, you know, it's not about the figure; it's about the light within the room on the figure and what it's doing. Again, you know, very subdued color overall. Here's another one, you know, the series that we looked at in the model with the parasol. So another study in that theme. Now, figure work is really, really nice. You know, and I like what he's doing, you know, in the studio with figure. But his landscapes are really, really kind of magical. And again, this is probably a very quick painting, you know, probably less than an hour, you know, hour and a half maybe. And I would venture to guess it's probably done in Venice. And again, you know, he's just trying to capture the mood of that place and that time. Here's another one of the studio paintings, figure. The outdoor beach scene. Now, again, these are probably very small paintings. You know, most of what I picked were not finished works, but, you know, preliminary studies, you know, alla prima, from life, on site. But if you can do something like that in an hour and a half, on site, more than likely you know what you're doing. Again, there's not a lot of detail there. You know, there's a suggestion of a lot of things, you know, in the room, but none of them are really rendered. And what he's relying on is the value contrast and the shifting in color and temperature to direct your eye really to the focal point, which is really not the figure, it's really the reflection of the figure back here. Probably a bigger finished painting. But it kind of goes back to what he was saying, you know, in the actual, that little short snippet of the video that we watched, which was, you know, you do a lot of studies. You know, you begin to figure it out before you commit yourself, you know, to something that's going to take a lot of time. Anybody see anything they like so far? Like it, don't like it?
I like the landscapes. They're loose, almost impressionistic.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the studio ones indicate there's a lot of things going on in there, but they're not just detailed.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Well, and most of what we saw from the inside are still studies, you know,
Oh, okay.
and not finished paintings. You know, in fact, I think we've only looked at 2 paintings that were probably larger and finished. All of these are, you know, from life, you know, and sort of exploratory. Now, this may actually be a finished painting. I would venture to guess yes. Okay. But if you look at it very carefully, you know, there's a lot of colors, there's a lot of subtlety in there. But, you know, real strong, very deliberate shifts in value, you know, where the light and shadow are, you know, very carefully composed, but still painted, you know, more or less almost abstractly. Yeah.
You know, and if you look at it, not quite too closely, but kind of lean back a little bit, you actually see the houses that are on the top left a lot more.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, just, yeah. Everything looks a little better if you kind of lean back, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's, yeah, you like most, you know, modern painting, anything that, you know, after, you know, say the Romanticist period forward, pretty much so you want to back away from it, you know, and look at it, because that's the way you begin to see the image. You know, it's not
Mhm.
meant for you to walk up and look at all the little, you know, details. You're not going to see, you know, hairs, you know, on her arm or anything like that. You're just going to see paint,
Right.
you know, and and again, that's what I'm saying. It's painted more abstractly, simplified things down. But when you look at the image overall, you know exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
It looks like what you would see if you're looking from a distance.
Mhm.
You see the figures, but you don't see the detail of the figures. You
Right.
know? Mhm.
Yeah, and that's kind of the
Now, I like that one. Come to think of it.
Yeah, I like the beach theme too.
Yeah, I like that one. You know, because I said, 'cause when you look back, you see the air, you see the sun shining on the top of the roofs and everything, and the little child in the water. I say it looks like what you would see if you were looking a long distance. You know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
See, here's another one of the little studies for the beach thing. And so this, you know, when you look at the size of like the signature and the painting and just the weave of the canvas, you know that this is a very small painting. You know, it's probably like about a 6x8, 6x9, not much bigger than that. Same thing here. But you have to do these before you can do the finished beach thing. Is kind of the point. You know, you've got to go through this series of explorations and studies to learn about what it is you're painting.
Yeah.
Because too often what happens is, you know, we're in the hurry, you know, in a hurry to do something and finish it and make it a finished piece of work. And we haven't done these basic, you know, preliminary steps of really exploring it, finding out what it's really all about. And then we scratch our heads and wonder, why didn't that work out better? Right? So,
What I've got to learn to do is, if the paint is not going right, don't just say, okay, throw that aside and try a different one. What I got to learn to do is stick with it and see what you did wrong and go on, rather than that way I end up with 4 or 5 or more paintings that are unfinished, you know.
yeah. Well, see, I would still push you to go a different direction. What I would push you to do is, before you do the final painting, or when you get an idea to do a final painting, take a canvas or a couple of pieces of paper and just kind of draw off like a 3x5, 5x7 little area, and do just a little quick, you know, idea sketch in color or value, for that matter of fact. And then do another one, and then do another one. You know, maybe play with the composition or change the color or the contrast in it a little bit. And do, you know, 4 or 5 of those before you get into doing the bigger one. And I'll guarantee you that by the time that you get doing the bigger one, you'll do it with a lot more confidence, and you'll have a better idea of what you actually want to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Rather than launching into, let's say that you're doing a 16x20 painting of a landscape, like, you know, something in your backyard, your neighborhood, or something like that. And if you do those little thumbnails first, you can play with the composition. You can make mistakes. You can have what Bob Ross would call happy little accidents, you know, colors that work together or something like that you might like. That when you get to that 16x20, you know, you'll have done those things and have a clear idea of, okay, yeah, I really want that value and color combination in this painting because I like how that works, or I like the look of the paint that's, you know, in my study, and I want to try to keep some of that in my final paint. You know, little insights like that can really help you when you start doing something, bigger, and it makes it worth the time spending actually doing it, because you've got a clearer kind of roadmap of where you're going and a clearer idea of what you want it to be. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Back on. I'm back on. Yes. Mhm.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to push you guys to do. More thought and more effort up front, with the hope that in the end, you end up getting stuff that's, more satisfying to you, more figured out, less frustrating, and you'll end up with a lot less unfinished paintings. Where you get frustrated and go, okay, I'm done. I'm leaving this and got to leave it alone. But you've got a good sense of where you're going.
Are you talking about us on the slide, Charles?
Am I talking about you what?
On the sly.
On the side? No, I'm talking.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking to you directly. I mean, look,
No.
it's
calling us out. You're calling some of us out.
Well, I'm calling all of you out, and I'm calling me out too. Look, we all have the same problems, right? It's we may be in different places, along the journey, but we all still, have the same issues, and if I can offer you something to help you get further along with and not have to deal with those issues, but give you a way to work them out, then I've kind of done my job, right? So now the one thing I know about being an artist, and I've seen it in me, I've seen it in just about everybody that I've ever known, who painted or sculpted or did anything else. We all go through this thing, and we pick up these little hints of how to maybe do things better, and we'll try it for a little while. And the problem is, what eventually happens is we drift back into our old habits, right? And so you've got to kind of stick with that process for a while and begin to let it become part of your own process. And it takes some effort. It's not easy. So, and I'm speaking from personal experience here. It took me, when I got out of the Academy of Art, I had 4 years, being trained, as an illustrator. And all of this stuff that I'm talking about today was all stuff that I heard over and over and over again, just about every class that I went to at the Academy of Art. And I would do it, I would do thumbnails and everything else, but I would do them kind of begrudgingly because, again, it's like when I got excited about doing something, I had this picture of it in my head, and I just wanted to jump in there and start painting, and start, doing the fun part. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time to begin to really realize and see the value of doing those, going through that process. And the fact that it really wasn't a waste of time. That in fact, when I did that, one, I didn't take as much time to do the final piece, and I didn't get to a point where I felt like I was stuck with those final pieces because I had already worked them out on the front end. And so it ended up saving me, a huge amount of time. And it was very worthwhile. So, for what that's worth. So anyway, that's Kenneth Howard. Okay. Anybody got any thoughts about his work? Anything you want to say before we move on?
I just like the way he handles light. You know.
Can you?
It looks like there's quite a few YouTube things about Ken Howard too out there.
Yeah, they're all very short.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, like painfully short. 2 and 3 minutes. There's one or two. I think there's one where he's doing a portrait of someone that lasts about 12 to 14 minutes. And I haven't watched that one yet, but I'm going to, and maybe I'll play it for you guys in the future. But good painter. And again, when I opened up this session today, one of the things that I suggested to you was that some of these old guys, they say things, and you think they're just kind of talking, and it kind of goes by real quick. But if you really listen to what he's saying, there's some really valuable lessons in there. And they're saying, on a different level, they're saying things in a way that it's easy to miss, but it's important. So I would encourage you to go back, listen to those a couple of times, see what you get out of them. You might get some pearls of wisdom out of it, and watch what they're doing, along with what they're saying, because a lot of times you pick up little hints from just watching the process that they're going through and that they're talking about. So anyway, from here, we are going to go, we're going to go to another old codger, okay? And, his name is Anthony Eaton, spelled E-Y-T-O-N, okay? And he's fun, I think you'll enjoy what he has to say. Now we have to get through this ad.
Backup system is going on today. So that's a mess of care goes on. At Thunderbolt in the life room, John Dodge is teaching that story. The model of the place. And he sat down beside me, and I thought he talked about the joy. And he said there's a chair over there, and it's about 15 feet away. It's an ordinary chair. All he said was, do you see? I looked again, very earnestly, do you see? Then started really seeing the chair as a marvelous entity. I looked at the spaces underneath, the construction of the chair, and the sort of aura that came by the chair. He said, once again, like to have a mantra, just do you see? Best lesson I've ever had. But what he was in fact doing was to make me see something very ordinary in a very special way.
Look at those brushes.
What was extraordinary about fashion is he comes down to getting it to fit together.
Hey, Kermit.
Like,
Oh, I'm okay.
the master and the servant. The master doing the painting.
Yeah.
I got one particular shirt which I had in a studio in Chelsea. And
Oh, wow. Okay. I wasn't able to make that one.
it's taking me a kind of journey which I normally wouldn't make. You start thinking of simple shirt, then you realize what a beautiful piece of work this is in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
History involved in it, one's relation to it as an object of over 60 years.
Okay. Okay. I'll be there at 12 o'clock, though, for sure. I'll let Bernice know, too.
Thank you. so far, the main principal chair has been put through various situations. It belongs to the rear of chairs. Here, the living chair is about, I hope, life size. To present a back view, so I'm a bit of a voyeur. That's why I'm speaking up as it were, to down on the elbow feeling. I don't talk about sit down on the elbow, me being one the other. Like it. Yeah, this chair is naked. And I hope to give it the same present as Rembrandt did himself. It was me background is everything, and therefore relationships are a sort of weird relationship. Here we are, as I say, 39, probably need a coffee. So to start in one up, and then you start seeing the whole. I'm not seeing the whole, I have no idea what happens out there. Seeing this at the same time. The naughty bit of blue up there, postcard. Maybe paint with the left hand, just approximate. What should we do on my birthday but paint? It's kind of a bit silly, really, being 96 and not knowing how I got here. I'm well aware that I've got to go on. I'd rather have 10 of those, so as not to be under pressure with any argument particularly. Maybe I should leave them on a book on there. Luck plays a great part in painting. This is a very useful brush. It's worn right down, very little hair in it, but it's for putting definite marks on it. It's unsurpassable. Like that. The other thing about painting is that you're about 5 minutes behind a thought, gasping for breath, as it were, to catch up with what it demands of me. Very lovely colour. Funny, I feel as I'm being very bold, but actually when it comes down to it, not very well. All over the place, really. Seeing the same thing as I'm being painted yesterday and the big one here. It's never boring. So beginning to get to know it. You don't know about the subject really until you start drawing it. That's why it's such a good thing to draw from a picture around that the tail. Move gentlemen into it. Again, that's really possible. And very often when you're in a bad mood, or kind of, that's the time when you do best, because you're up against it. I do think being up against it and finding it difficult, an immense challenge. If you don't give it up, you persist and put hooks into it and grapple with what you want and what you do. It doesn't come together. Hardly ever. as a foundation, because it's all over, and there's other things to do. Got more light. That's what I want to get. I want to get a real fiction. It dazzles. I sometimes think it's about the only thing I can do to be different in this modern age that I could add to the light brigade. You've got to have some sort of belief in yourself. You can deliver something which is poetical and says something to every sort of age, really. That's why the chairs, if they could shiver with flight or nation, doesn't matter what, if they could come together, driven by force, hope there's a sort of drama there. Face that. No good if it's not flat. I don't understand whether that's modern or not. It's very old. It's true. All the way long, I've been wrong about it. It's just a compromise. It's a mixture of continuity, but one's got to respect the geometry at the same time. Nothing to do with feelings or anything. It's trying to get the everything right. There's one thing about oil paint you can. My museum, people who look like and it has to look severely diminished now, instead of something confrontational, it's something receding about it. So up we go again. We have to do that to find out. It's negative, it's mostly the rational is most of it. But on definition, and that's every day I find this completely different because of the angle of sun and all that thing. Almost impossible. The miracles can happen if you let yourself go, just to see what you see. What I got to remember is the great big bass notes of the bottoms of the chairs. Like that, very staccato, repeating, which hadn't come out properly yet. I have just recorded repetition to it. Anyhow, it doesn't in my head, I think, it's good. It's a whole new sort of angst which comes out in modern painting, and I hope at least I share that angst. But, well, one has a go at it. That's the best.
Okay. Anybody got any thoughts about that?
I did not like his style, and his style was definitely reflected in his appearance and his housekeeping. He had yellow paint on his forehead and blue paint on his cheeks. And I didn't like his loose style. It was too loose
Messy.
for me. Yes, thank you. I was
Yeah,
trying not to
messy.
use that word.
And why was he using such long brushes?
Ah. Well,
He had to get away with those paint splatters.
yeah, but
Oh,
you see, with those extra long,
Just joking.
yeah, with those extra long handles on those brushes, he could sit back and he could put a paint stroke down on that large canvas, and he wouldn't have to get up to back away from the painting to see how it affected the paint, because he was already back away from it.
oh, okay.
See? And so if you look at Monet, if you look at like Pizarro and a lot of the Impressionists and Post-Impressionists, they all of them had their brushes, extended and with extra long handles like that, so that they could stay back away from the painting and they could see, what was going on. But did you notice how he could take that long brush and he could very carefully, draw and make a line and vary it, and how much control he had, when he wanted to really make that mark just the way he wanted and just where he wanted it.
Yeah,
I noticed that.
because I was thinking initially, like, with those long brushes, how's he gonna get the fine details? He did do it.
He had a steady hand, I guess.
But you see, the thing is, okay, well, and maybe I should go back and just we should look at that. But look at how he was holding the brush, and look at how he could control the brush. See, very easily. And when I talk about holding a brush, what I tell people is open your hand, lay the brush across your fingers and put your thumb on top of it, and then reach out, and make a paint stroke, right? And see, a lot of people, they want to hold on to the brush and they want to use it like a pencil. That's not how you use a brush. That's not how you paint with it. So here, let's go back.
What about details?
Pardon?
Excuse me. I said, what about detailing?
Well, that's, again, that goes back to that idea of it's not about the details,
So he's giving you just an image of something that's there without the details.
Yeah, well,
because even though I saw the chairs and the fireplace and things like that, it just seemed a little on top of each other, the paint.
Right. Well, and see, here's the point, is that as you paint, and you do this more and more, you figure out it's not about the detail. It's really about composition. It's about the contrast. It's about edges. We had a conversation a long time ago, and what I basically told all of you was, when you start putting in the details, or the more detail you put into a painting, what you're actually doing is you're cutting off the conversation with the people who are going to view it later. See, because if you put everything in there, right, then that doesn't leave any room for them to look at it, interpret it, bring their own experience to it, and make it personal, to them. And as an artist, you kind of need that, you know, because if people are going to look at your work, if people are going to admire your work, it's going to be because they have some kind of connection to it, you know, because they can relate to what it is, you know, the image that you produced in some way. And so you want to keep that conversation open. Yeah. And it's like every time, you know, that they go back and they look at that painting, you know, they keep seeing, you know, something, but they may see it in a new way. Even if they looked at that painting, you know, 20 or 30 times. You know, have any of you had the experience of, you know, having work in a gallery and then having somebody come and look at the painting and kind of think about buying it and notice how many times people will come back, you know, before they actually buy something?
Not me.
No, not me.
Yeah.
But I have a question. Is all his work like this? Is everything that he's done? Is there anything different? Does he do landscaping? Does he do seascapes? Does he do anything else besides?
I don't really know that much about him. You know,
Oh,
I haven't
okay.
done that much research on him, but I get the impression that you know, he worked with a fairly famous English artist. Last name is Dobson, who I'll have to do a video on sometime because he was a pretty amazing English portrait painter. But you know, he had studied with him, and that tells you how old he is. And you know, he said he was 96. That goes back a long way when Dobson was painting. But you know, I get the impression that you know he does interiors and you know mainly you know does chairs. Now whether he does portraits and things, I don't know yet. But I'm gonna have to look up more of his work, and I'll get back to you and let you know. But
so this is Anthony Eaton. Okay, I had chaos going on here because I had people like blowing the leaves in my yard while this was going on, so I wanted to just verify who I was looking at. So I had to get up for a little while and deal with that.
Well, yeah, I'm going to try to gather some images up of his and you know do a little more research on him. He's an interesting character, and if you came in late on this, you know, basically what we're doing is we're doing a bunch of old codgers today. You know, they may not be the easiest people to listen to, but they have some, you know, good things to say, and just watching them, you can pick up a lot of interesting stuff from them, which is why we're taking the time to kind of explore them right now.
I think I like Ken Howard's work more.
Yeah, it's a little more organized and you know, and a little more varied than what we've seen of him. But again, I don't know. You know, I don't know that. You know, whether I've got a good beat on exactly what he does or not yet. Now, again, you know, look at the length of that paintbrush. You know, I mean, you know, just the handle itself is probably a good 18 to 24 inches long. And, you know, and what that does is that gives him the ability, you know, let's see if, let's just hit it. Whoop, it cut just before that. Yeah. Yep, not there yet. Yeah. But you see, when he's painting, you know, he's far back away, you know, because he's got the length of that paintbrush, but he also has his whole arm up to his shoulder in distance away from that canvas, so that as he's making a paint stroke, he can actually see the effect of that, you know, not in just that area, but in that whole painting, because it's like every time you put a paint stroke down on the painting, it changes the relationship of everything else around it. So, kind of important.
I get the point about him having the long brush handles so he can see how his painting is coming along. But it seems like the brush, just, you know, when he's putting the paint down with those long brushes, it's not, I don't know, just doesn't look like neat enough. It's like it's a little blurry, the portrait, the painting.
Yeah. Well, and
I know that's got to be hard trying to put oil on something like that and, you know, make those lines straight and things like that.
Yeah. Well, but again, I think in many ways he's not trying to.
He's just putting his paint down.
Yeah, and he's making a statement. He's not trying to give you the illusion of reality. You know, he's not rendering a chair. You know, he's trying to kind of create a mood, you know, to the painting itself. You know, some of the movement, you know, the composition, the contrast. And again, you know, I'll go back and I'll try to find more of his work so we can look at like a larger body of the work and you can get a kind of a sense of what he's all about. You know?
Yeah, because I'm trying to understand what kind of conversation that you would have if you saw his paintings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are they actually giving me something to talk about besides something negative? So, and you don't want to do that. But
you talk about brush strokes.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Talk about color, composition, you know, and his whole thing.
It seems to be sort of muted though, doesn't it seem? There's no color. There is some color, but it's not like, it's sort of like muted, soft.
Mm-hmm. Well, in some of his paintings, yeah. I mean, like in this painting that's on the screen right now,
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of color in there. Now, is it all intense color? No. No. I mean, it's fairly subdued, even though there's a lot of green and red in there. There's not much in there that's really, really intense. And again, you know, we're not looking at the final painting because usually when you put those bright, more intense colors in, is toward the end of the painting. Because you want to kind of hold back on them until you place them, you know, really at your focal point.
I noticed at one point he had got up and used a type of cloth to wipe off some of this paint. I'm not sure if it was something that was too much on it. I couldn't tell. He just went over to there and just wiped some paint off in a couple of different scenes.
Yeah. Well, he may not have liked the way the paint went down, and he went and he took it off so he could go back in and repaint it again.
Oh, okay.
You know, that happens all the time. You know.
Is that difficult with oil to wipe it like that?
Not. A lot of people will, rather than go at it with a rag, unless they want to soften it, will just go at it with a palette knife and scrape off those layers of paint, and then maybe go in and lift any extra out with a rag, and then go back in and repaint that area again. But no, that's you know, I've had whole days like that, where, you know, you'll paint something and, you know, you'll be kind of struggling with it and you just try to work through it and you end up getting a lot of paint on it. And at the end of the day, you look at it and go, this doesn't work. And then you just take a palette knife to it and go.
Okay.
Most of the time I don't put it back in the rag. You know, most of the time when I scrape the paint off like that, I'll put it on a corner of the palette and just mix it all together and make a neutral or gray out of it.
Oh, okay.
And then reuse it as, you know, to prime a canvas with or something, or put down a neutral tone. Yeah.
Waste not, want not.
Yeah, I try
That's
not.
a good idea.
Yeah, I try not to waste a lot of paint.
Yeah.
But I do. I have those days where, you know, it just doesn't work, and you just go back and go, okay, no. Rather than fight with it, rather than try to keep plugging away at it, figure it out, just come back at it, you know, another day fresh, and just, you know, like take it away, and then you can just start over again. So, you know, you don't win, you know, you don't win them all. So, and that's just life. So, okay. All right. So you didn't like him, okay? But let's keep moving on. We've got another painter. Now this guy is not quite as old, and he probably speaks a little more clearly. But I want you to see the way that this painting develops. He's doing a portrait, you know, of a gentleman, and I think you'll like him. His name is Neil Worley, and you know, I'm sure Eloise will like him much better because he's a much more organized painter. But
thank you.
Yeah, good stuff. Yep. So away we go. Okay, so it's painting an oil sketch of John. Okay, and like I said, this is Neil Worley.
You could put your hand against your head. Yeah, that's it. Up against, so you're supporting your head.
Now I will say he's not going to win any good housekeeping award.
My God.
Yeah, you notice all those rags back there, or paper towels with perp and paint in it. So.
Yeah.
Also, notice how he's holding the paintbrush.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But he'll do it both ways. You know, come back kind of overhand like a pencil, and then he'll use the underhand kind of, you know, using his wrist as well.
Nelly Worley, how's that you pronounce that name?
Sorry, Armando, what?
Nelly Worley, that's his name? Nelly?
Neil.
Oh, Neil Worley.
Worley.
Thank you last Saturday. You weren't there.
Need.
Okay, so what did you notice different about what he's doing versus say, the guy we looked at before, Mr. Eaton?
He would stop and look at the model every now and then, as to like he was studying him. He was having a little trouble with the model, I think, sitting still.
Okay, anybody else? Any thoughts about that?
Like his, I like this portrait. It
Yes.
It'll make me stop and look at it. You know, it'll pull my interest to it compared to the other artists.
Okay. Well, notice kind of the pace that they painted that too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, Worley has a very steady hand, very deliberate with his brush strokes. You know, he's standing, and so he's walking up to the canvas to make a paint stroke or several paint strokes, blocking something, you know, soften something, do whatever he's going to do, and then he steps away from it, goes back. The other thing is his painting gives you a feeling that it's more organized. You know, it's less active, it's kind of quiet, kind of passive in a way. But you know, you look at how like the flesh tones are organized, and it's very deliberate, right? And so it's a very different feeling, you know, in the final result.
I think it would cause you also to study it a little bit more, because it would make you wonder maybe what he was thinking, or maybe his conditions and living conditions and whatever. But I think it would make you stop and discuss it a little bit more than the others.
I agree. I agree.
And, you know, it's finished it up, and I think it's basically done. But did you hear, you know, he was having trouble with his model. You know, evidently, you know, he went looking for him, you know, on a Saturday or something, couldn't find him. I guess they had a model session set up. Yeah, I've never had that happen.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
This next song
it's crazy. You know, it's like when you're working with models. You know, even, you know, I mean, you're paying them and everything else, you know, to show up and be there. And, you know, sometimes that works out. Sometimes, in fact, a lot of times, nope. No.
Yeah, he sort of act like he didn't want to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, and we could read a lot of things into, you know, who he was and the situation in his life and things. But, you know, my guess is that, you know, he was, you know, if not homeless, then probably, you know, insecure, you know, in having a roof over his head. So, but you know, but hey, you know, a lot of artists work with, you know, folks like that. You know, I have on many occasions, and the reason being, most of them don't have anywhere they have to be. So, you know, they're available, and if you're paying them, they're happy to show up. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
And get a glass of wine.
Right.
Well, you know, and a, you know, personal story is when I lived on the south side, over in Capitol View, there was a bridge that I would go under on Lee Street every day. And that bridge for years had been a homeless community. And there were probably about 25, 30 people who lived up under that bridge. And it was a real tight-knit community. You know, they all knew each other. They had been there for years, literally. And that was their home, you know. And I got to know them because the first year I moved in, I had like a holiday dinner, and I had a bunch of food left over, and I knew that those people were up there. And it was men and women, both lived under that bridge. And so I took all of the remaining food and made a couple of thermoses of coffee and went up there and, you know, basically gave them the food and sat out there with them for a couple of hours, you know, talking to them, getting to know them. And I ended up going back there many, many times and getting to know, you know, the people in that community. And I actually painted quite a few of them, but they were actually good models, you know. You know, and a lot of the work that I did, I would do a lot of drawings up there of them from life, you know, while we were just sitting around talking. But hey, you know, you get models where you can, you know, as an artist. So, and you know, people have always interested me. You know, they're probably the most interesting subject of anything that, you know, you can paint. That's my opinion. But you know, I've always enjoyed painting people, and the thing is, you know, as you paint them, you get to know them and their stories, and you know, there's all kinds of stories out there. So anyway, we're gonna take a quick respite here, and we're gonna look at some of Mr. Worley's paintings, because I downloaded some. And so, you know, this is primarily he does figures and portraits. You know, that's what he's known for. But, you know, I like his approach to painting. It's very clean, very kind of simplified. You know, again, not a lot of detail, right, in the painting. If you begin to look at this woman's face, you know, you know, you see the structural elements of it, and it mainly holds together because of the change in value. And, you know, he's built a good, strong structure, you know, to her face. And the same thing with the hands. You know, he's got a good understanding of the form and the structure there. And look at the change in value, how he's pushed this arm and made it very, very dark. See, so that in fact, you know, that forearm that's still in shadow stands out in front of it. So he's really separated the value out very nicely. And then he's come to the other arm and he's got a dark edge, which is kind of comparable or equal to the dark value back here. and then see how he transitions the form.
And that dog value that's on the right side of her arm, that's hair, isn't it?
No, this is her skin here.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the upper part of the arm, and see it bends at the elbow, and then this is the forearm coming forward. And he's consciously made a change in value there so that he could separate out, you know, that forearm and get it to move forward.
Oh,
But
I
again,
see it now. Yeah, I see it now. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I see the fold. Yeah, that what I was looking at the end of her hair is really where she folded her elbow. Okay.
But, you know, and
There's also a difference in temperature. So now I seem to have noticed that in the portrait of John too. He uses a little cooler temperature in his shadows.
well, in this case, see when I look at that, yeah, I'd say down here, this is cooler, this is warmer. You know, but then it reverses up here where this is warmer and the shadow up here on the hand is cooler. But the thing I wanted to point out, because I talk about this a lot, is turning form and how you have to have at least 5 values, right? So let's count them, okay? So you start over here at the edge of the arm. Let's blow this up. And you see how this is a little bit grayer, a little more muted right along the edge here. And then it goes into something that's lighter, okay, but maybe a little bit, is that cooler? Yeah, I'd say probably a little bit cooler. And then again, he goes to a mid-tone, right? So there's 3. And then right here at the core shadow, you see how it gets warmer again? You really get the most saturation in color right along that core shadow line. And then you get the core shadow itself, so that's 5. And then you get the reflected light, which is 6. So he's used 6 values to turn the form in that arm. Everybody kind of get that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but does it seem like the shoulder and the shadow is a little higher than what it should be?
You mean up here?
Yeah, seem like it's up higher than normal. I don't know, maybe it's just me. It just looks like it's up higher than normal. I thought it was a shadow on the sheet behind there. But
No,
if that's her shoulders.
that's her shoulder.
Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, from the angle that we're looking at. Yeah. Yeah, because her head is kind of sunk down, you know.
Yeah.
And no, so, you know, if you look at the height of the shoulder, they're about equal. You know, it drops down because this is closer to us and this is further away. But
yeah.
But no, it doesn't seem to be like unusually high or anything to me.
Okay. Yeah.
But again, you know, you can see, you know, very clearly, you know, how he put down like areas of paint. And, you know, he didn't take a lot of time to sit there and blend, you know, like very, very softly. You know, he just let one edge sort of, you know, work into the next edge, like in here, the transition. So they're fairly distinct areas of value, but, you know, the edge is not like real, it's not like a real hard line. In this area, it's a little bit softer, and over here, it's a little bit clearer, you know, defined.
Bless you.
So you get this hard, soft.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Oh, I wanted to ask a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Well, about the woman's, where you were saying how in her cheekbones there, where it went from one color to the next. Why? Okay, should it be that sharp? I mean, usually I thought you say you have to sort of like blend it in to make it look like it's blending instead of just so sharp.
Right. Well,
that's what he was trying to do. Is that what it?
Yeah. Well, the way he paints is more of what we would consider an alla prima approach. You know, rather than like a traditional process.
Okay.
So, you know, he does have harder and softer transitions, but he doesn't spend a lot of time like blending. Like if you were like a very traditional portrait painter, you would take a very soft brush and come back and, you know, maybe blend those two together, you know, more finely. But he wants this to look more painterly. And so like in the dress and stuff, you see a change in value, and there may be 2 or 3 values down there, but he doesn't take the time to like blend them together.
Okay.
Very carefully, you know. And you'll see that through all of his paintings. They have almost a little more of a graphic look to them.
That's what I was about to ask you. That's supposed to be a graphic look. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a, you know, he's simplifying the figure. You know, he's not doing a lot of like real tricky, fancy approaches to painting where he's doing a lot of blending or glazing or anything like that. You know, he's seeing color and value and you know, putting down blocks and shapes of color. So you can see it in this figure as well. And, you know, Bernice, look at the fabric. And you too, John. See, when he gets into doing the fabric, you know.
Yeah, I see.
He's got.
I'm looking at how the light is hitting it from the left, and
yeah, the difference between the light and shadow.
You see on her chest, you know, how the light hit just on that upper, what kind of upper part of her chest? Not down there where her.
We're talking about the shadow part.
You mean
no,
like on
the light right there, yeah.
Yeah, on her rib cage.
And then a little bit on her arm, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, I see.
Yeah, again, you know, squint your eye down, and you'll see where parts of the body, like the abdomen, the stomach area, you know, this forearm back here, all kind of fall into shadow. You know, so does this whole arm here. You know, and it separates real nicely, you know, between, you know, the light areas and the shadow areas. And it's subtle, but it's still, there's enough of a value and a temperature difference that they really separate out pretty nicely.
So that light is above, coming from the right.
I would say it's above, coming from the left.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look, well.
I'm looking at
you're
the
right.
top of her.
Yeah, you're right, because if it were coming from the left, then there wouldn't be a cast shadow here. But yeah, it's coming really kind of above and kind of from the front of her, and then the cast shadow is behind her back here. So yeah, it's kind of coming in this angle right here. Oh, a tiny little photo. Let's see what. Yeah, still holds together pretty nicely. Okay. But evidently, you know, he's not afraid of painting fabric or flesh tones.
Not at all.
Not at all. It's his thing. It's what he does. Now look at the black dress. It's not black, is it?
No.
Look at the change in value. And the change in temperature. You see how you see a lot more blue in the really dark shadows?
Yeah, a lot of blue.
Yeah. And then when you, you know, look at like her hair, and remember what I was talking about with the hair, you don't see like a lot of strands of hair.
Right.
What you see is you see a change in value, right? Because the value describes the form. It you know, really kind of tells you what the structure is that you're looking at and how this surface curves, right? And it goes from shadow into light and then back into shadow. Okay? And it makes it feel round, which it should. It's not flat there. So yeah, there's all kinds of lessons that you can learn, you know, in looking at, you know, paintings. I saw this painting and immediately it, made me think of my friend, Bo Bartlett. because it looked like one of the paintings. You know, he did a series of paintings of this young woman up in like Nantucket or somewhere like that. But, you know, very similar approach, very similar technique. And in a way, you know, she's almost kind of flat. You know, how he's kind of but notice he's got an outline on really on all the figure. But again, the value and the intensity of the outline here is very different and warmer than the line down here, which tends to be darker and cooler. And if these had been the same, then it would have flattened out. But because this is slightly lighter and warmer, it still helps, you know, lets it turn. Here's one of his landscapes. And again, you know, he's not painting details. He's painting, you know, forms and structures. Come on. Wanted to blow this up. Now, how much fun would it be to paint that wallpaper back there?
What's his name again?
I think I'd try it. It's nice. I like it. It's very pretty.
Yeah. Well, it's nice because it gives you a whole totally different feel, you know, against her figure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a nice backdrop.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's busy, you know, it's got a lot of activity back there, and yet at the same time, it doesn't compete with her.
Right, right.
What's his name? The artist?
His name?
Yeah.
Neil Worley.
N-E-A-L-E?
Neale. Worley. Worley.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like this guy. He looks surly. But
check out his tattoos on his hands.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
But look at the light. You know, look at the light in the painting and where the light is focused. Really all right here. There's a lot of stuff going on back here in the background, but it doesn't compete with him. And then when you actually look at the focal point, which is really his face and beard, you know, again, you know, he's really gotten down the actual underlying structure, you know, of the head, and he's done this beautiful job of turning his forehead and rounding it out, and the same thing across the cheeks of the face, and it works, you know, really nicely. Yeah, this fella.
I was watching a cooking show last night. They were doing holiday baking. He looks like one of the contestants that was on there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he does.
Here's the painting.
Oh,
yeah, here's
yes.
the painting that we paint.
This is it completed.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah,
that color in the background indicates his, I guess, his mood also, that dark brown.
Oh, wow.
And he's blended into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's depressing.
Yeah.
Maybe he is depressed.
Well, you know, when we were watching it, notice, you know, at one point he came back in and put a lighter background in.
Yeah.
And he didn't like the contrast because it competed with the flesh tones, you know, and contrast in here. So he went back in and he darkened it again. You know,
Yeah, they showed him doing that.
Yeah, well, it kept the, you know, kept the light isolated really on his face, which is where he wanted it. And this is one of the things, you know, about painting. It's like, you know, sometimes you'll try, you know, putting in a lighter background or something like that. Like in this case, with these two ladies, you know, it works really nicely because of their skin tone being so dark. It really separates their skin tones away from, you know, the background. But he's got this nice sense of light. You know,
Oh, it's beautiful, beautiful.
Yes, yes. Because one's in the shadow and the other isn't.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Well, a lot of her is in shadow. And when
Yeah.
where it does go into shadow, it gets so dark that there's really no detail. I mean, there's nothing really in that face, and yet it still works. You know, I mean, you know that there's somebody there. And he hasn't given you, you know, eyes, nose, mouth. He hasn't painted any of that, really. On her, he has, because she's in light, you know, in the upper part of her face. But as soon as it hits that shadow, okay, all of that goes away, and it just kind of becomes a flattened form, right? And that lets the hand, which is warmer and has a few more values in it, pop forward and kind of stand out. And see the arm back here, how you just kind of lose it, you know, back into the shadows. So he definitely, you know, really understands the structure of light and how it works on a form, and he's very, very, very good at painting, you know, those structures and forms. Here's a close-up of the two ladies.
Oh yeah, now you can see her features on on her, the darker skin one. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so you see something here.
No, the one on the right. The one on the right. You
And
can
then
see
with
now. You
her?
can see. Yeah. You can see
All he's done is he's giving you this little bit of light right here, kind of like on her neck, coming down. You know, just a little bit of the light to indicate that there's a change in surface or form right there. And that's all, you know, he's left all of this all pretty much so flat.
It looks like a cigarette in her mouth, or one of those things that you
Well, you know, it could be.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that people chew on. It's a type of root or something.
Could.
And
It could be that.
They use that to chew on. I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Possible. You know, I mean, I kind of read it as on the other side of her face, kind of like light on her neck here. But
that's something in her mouth.
Yeah, it could be. In her mouth. But, you know, real good control of value. And, you know, the structure of the value where the light and shadow are. And it really separates out the two, you know, pretty dramatically.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah, just real nice, kind of, you know, simplified, you know, changes in value and temperature, you know, to bring out, you know, bring forward, you know, the forehead. And then, you know, these actually get warmer. The shadows here are warmer than the actual light skin tone.
I actually like the way the pattern on the top of the dress glistens. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You mean right here?
Move it back a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. It just
pretty design.
But it glistens. You know, it picks up so much light.
Yeah. Nice.
So there's that fabric for you again.
That is a good paint.
Yeah, but both light and dark fabrics, and how the values change, you know, in those areas.
I don't know how he concentrates.
Yeah. All right, Armando.
And the red fabric. And the hair.
Yep. Yeah, and again, let's look at that hair, Because what you'll find is he didn't spend a lot of time making a lot of little paint strips, you know. Whoop, come back here. What he did was he saw where the lighter areas and the darker areas were. Okay. So again, you know, it's a change in value or temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave you just enough information to know that she's got like very wavy, you know, kind of curly hair. But he didn't sit there and draw out every little strand of hair. And see, it doesn't start off light here and go all the way through. You know, it starts off dark, goes to kind of a mid-tone, right? Then gets lighter, and then goes back to mid-tone again, and then maybe not as light, right? But it changes as it moves, it changes direction. Here's John again, the guy you painted.
It's that guy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, different painting, but same character. Very kind of quiet painting, but quiet, but not really passive. You know, something going on there psychologically. But look at the green, you know, here in the shadows. It's sort of greenish gray against the red. So he changes the temperature and uses what we call direct complements. And again, look at the dark fabric. You know, it's not black. You know, it's a series of grays, and he's got some, you know, some very dark, very deep areas, and then, you know, he's got a couple of steps in value there. And if you actually see the form, you know, in the dress itself.
Looks brown to me, and it's reflecting the dark red in the shirt.
You're saying the dark here? No.
That looks brown to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then right where the jacket goes down in the front, it picks up the red shade in the shirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be reflecting some of that.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's enough of a change in temperature and value that the two of them separate away. But if you squint your eye down, they're all the same value. Okay. So that the hands really kind of pop forward, and so does the arm of that settee on. So really, really nice control of value. So any thoughts about his stuff?
I liked a lot of his pieces. They were nice. I liked them. Colors were good, and shadowing was, you know, very, very nice.
Yeah, I liked his work too. It looked like I've seen a lot of contemporary young artists who paint in that same style. So I guess that's popular now. Where it's like you said, it's kind of graphic.
A little bit. A little bit simplified, which is good.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like his style.
All right. Well, look, it's 11:58 now.
Oh,
okay?
Goodness.
And well, yeah, I've got one other video that I was going to show you some short segments out of, but we will save that for another day. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Any news when you schedule for Christmas and New Year?
It hasn't changed from what I told you guys before.
Okay, guys, I gotta go. I'll see you all later.
All right.
Tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye, Wanda.
Bye.
Yeah, so we'll be here till I think what, the 23rd, and then I'm kind of off for Christmas, really until New Year's, after New Year's.
Okay.
Okay.
21st. All right.
No, 23rd.
Oh,
Okay.
23rd. Okay.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and take your cruise, Armando, and not miss anything.
That's right. Yeah, go on a Christmas cruise.
Yeah, I'm going to Decatur.
Yeah. Well, take
Yes.
take one of your ladies with you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Anyway, thank you all for showing up. We actually had like 11 people at one point. So.
All right.
Anyway.
See you tomorrow.
All right.
Okay. Thank you,
See you tomorrow.
Charles.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.